I remember the exact second the coffin opened, because that was the moment I realized I had never actually been in control. The sound wasn't loud. It was worse than loud. It was wrong, a dry, cracking noise like something that should have stayed sealed, forcing its way back into the world. At first, I thought I imagined it, because that's what grief does. It plays tricks on your mind. It makes you hear things that aren't there, see things that can't be real. But then I saw it. Her fingers, they moved. Slow, deliberate, alive. And suddenly, the air in the room changed. The whispers stopped. The crying stopped. Even the priest's voice disappeared, because death had just been interrupted. And the one person who wasn't surprised was me. Not because I expected her to wake up, but because deep down, I knew something about this whole situation had never been right. My name is Daniel Carter. And 3 days before my wife opened her eyes inside that coffin, I was standing in my kitchen, pouring myself a drink, celebrating her death. Yeah, go ahead. Judge me. You wouldn't be the first. But if you think this story is about a husband who killed his wife, you're wrong. This story is about a man who was broken into becoming someone he didn't recognize, and a woman who knew exactly how to push him there. Before I go any further, if you're into stories that hit hard, make you think, and keep you hooked till the very last second, subscribe to the channel. And drop your name and city in the comments. I read them, I remember them, because stories like this, they travel, and by the end of this one, you're going to feel it. Evelyn Carter, that was her name, and if you asked anyone who knew her, they'd tell you the same thing. She was perfect. Perfect smile, perfect voice, perfect timing, perfect control. But what people don't understand about perfect people is that perfection is almost always a performance. And performances, they're exhausting to maintain, which means eventually they crack. I just didn't realize I was living inside that crack. We had been married for 6 years. 6 years of routines so smooth they felt scripted. Morning coffee at exactly 7:10. She liked it with almond milk, always almond milk. Even when we ran out, she'd rather skip coffee than change it. That should have told me something. People who refuse small changes are usually hiding big ones. Our house was quiet. Too quiet. Not the peaceful kind, the controlled kind, like every sound had permission before it existed. And Evelyn, she controlled everything. Not in an obvious way, not with shouting or anger. No, she controlled things with silence, with looks, with pauses that made you question your own thoughts. "Are you okay?" I'd ask sometimes, and she'd smile, that same soft, measured smile. "I'm perfect." That word again, perfect. And every time she said it, something inside me felt smaller. At the first time she humiliated me in public, I convinced myself it was a joke. We were at a dinner party. 8 people, wine flowing, laughter bouncing off the walls, everything normal. Until someone asked how we met. Simple question, easy answer, or at least it should have been. Evelyn leaned back slightly, swirling her wine like she was thinking. Then she said, "Honestly, I almost didn't give Daniel a chance." Everyone laughed lightly. I smiled, waiting for the cute part, the romantic twist. It didn't come. I thought he was a little beneath my standards. The room went quiet for half a second. Then the laughter came back, louder this time, but different, not warm, sharp, uncomfortable. I felt it, that shift. Like I had just been placed below everyone else in that room. I looked at her, waiting. hoping she'd look back at me and smile like it was just a tease. She didn't. She took a sip of her drink, calm, unbothered, like she had just stated a fact. And that was the moment something inside me cracked for the first time, but I didn't react. Because when someone humiliates you calmly, reacting makes you look unstable, and I wasn't going to give her that, not yet. That night, I asked her about it. I tried to keep my voice steady. You didn't have to say that. She didn't even look up from her phone. Oh, Daniel, you're too sensitive. There it was, her favorite weapon, not anger, not denial, dismissal. You're too sensitive. You're overthinking, you're imagining things, and the worst part, it worked. Because slowly, I started questioning my own reality. Was it really that bad? Was I overreacting? Was I the problem? That's how it starts. Not with betrayal, not with lies, but with confusion. And once someone controls your sense of reality, they don't need to control anything else. The messages came later. And they didn't just break me, they rebuilt me into something dangerous. I wasn't snooping. I wasn't suspicious. Not yet. Her phone lit up while she was in the shower, just a notification, that's all. But the name, I didn't recognize it. And the message? Can't wait till he's out of the picture. My chest tightened. My fingers went cold. I stared at the screen like it was going to change. Like the words would rearrange themselves into something harmless. They didn't, I shouldn't have opened it. But I did. And the second I did, my entire life split into two versions, before that moment. And after it, there were hundreds of messages. Not dozens, hundreds, weeks of conversations. Carefully written, strategically timed, and every single one of them was about me. Not love, not romance, not even lust, planning, calculating, discussing me. Once everything is signed, he won't even realize what happened. We just need him to react. He's predictable. Predictable. That word stayed with me, because up until that moment I had been, but not anymore. If you're still watching this, I need you to pause for a second and think, what would you do? If you found out the person sleeping next to you was quietly planning your downfall, would you confront them? Would you leave? Or would you do what I did and stay quiet? Comment below your answer, and don't forget to write your name and city. I want to know where you're watching from, because this next part, this is where everything changes. I didn't confront her, not because I was scared, but because I realized something important. If I confronted her, she would win because she was prepared for that. She wanted a reaction. She needed me emotional, unstable, predictable. So instead, I became the one thing she wasn't expecting. Silent, observant, patient. And the more I watched her, the more I realized this wasn't just an affair. It was a setup. She wasn't just leaving me. She was erasing me financially, legally, emotionally. Everything we owned was slowly being moved. Accounts shifting, documents changing, names disappearing. Mine, and I understood something terrifying. By the time she was done, I wouldn't just lose her, I would lose everything. And no one would believe me, because to the world she was perfect, and I was just Daniel. The night I decided to stop being a victim was the night she came home late, later than usual. Her perfume wasn't hers, her smile wasn't real, and for the first time I didn't pretend. "Where were you?" I asked. She paused just for a second, then smiled. "You're imagining things again?" I nodded slowly. Then I said the words that changed everything. "I know." She froze, not for long, just enough. Then she laughed, not nervous, not scared, just amused. "Then you know there's nothing you can do about it." And in that moment, I realized something cold, something final. She didn't see me as a husband. She saw me as a problem already solved. And that's when I made my decision, not out of anger, not out of revenge, but out of survival. If she thought she had already won, then I would let her believe it. Because sometimes the only way to escape a trap is to walk deeper into it. 3 days later, she was dead, or at least that's what I thought. Perfect, now we go deeper, slower, darker. This is where retention spikes if done right. Part 2, deep manipulation, suspense, reversal build. I didn't kill her. Let me say that again. Because by the time this story ends, even I started questioning it. I didn't kill Evelyn, but I did something far worse. I became the man she wanted me to become. And the scariest part, I didn't even realize when it happened. The morning after I told her I know, everything changed. Not on the surface. On the surface, things were perfect. She still made coffee at 7:10, still used almond milk, still smiled like nothing had shifted. But underneath that routine, there was tension. Thick, invisible, dangerous. It felt like we were both standing on opposite sides of a glass wall, watching each other, waiting to see who would crack first. And I understood something very clearly that morning. She wasn't hiding anymore. She was watching me, measuring me, waiting for me to make a mistake. And that's when I made my first move. I acted normal. No anger, no confrontation, no suspicion, just normal. I even smiled at her. And for the first time in months, I saw something in her eyes I had never seen before. Uncertainty, just a flicker, but it was there because she expected chaos. She expected emotion. She expected me to explode, but I didn't, and that confused her, which meant for the first time I had control. If you're still here, you're starting to understand something important. This wasn't a marriage anymore. This was a psychological war, and wars aren't won with emotions. They're won with patience. Before I go further, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already and comment your name and city below. I want to see who's really paying attention to the details because the smallest detail in this story, it changes everything. I started documenting everything. Quietly, carefully, every call she took, every time she left the house, every change in her behavior. At first, it felt wrong, like I was invading her privacy. But then I remembered the messages. He's predictable. That line burned into my mind, so I changed that. I became unpredictable. I started coming home at random times, watching her reactions. Sometimes she'd be calm, too calm. Other times there was a delay, a hesitation, like she was adjusting to a script she hadn't expected to use. And that's when I knew she wasn't just planning something, she was actively executing it. The second move I made was the most dangerous one. I stopped caring, or at least I pretended to. I stopped asking questions, stopped checking in, stopped reacting, and slowly she relaxed. Her guard dropped, not completely, but enough. Enough for me to see things I wasn't supposed to see. One night she left her laptop open. That had never happened before. Evelyn was careful, precise, controlled. She didn't make mistakes. Which means that wasn't a mistake. It was a test, and I knew it. So I sat there looking at the screen knowing I was being watched. Somewhere, somehow, waiting, testing. If I opened it, I would confirm everything she believed about me. Predictable, emotional, reactive, so I did nothing. I closed the laptop, gently walked away. And that night, for the first time, she didn't sleep. I could feel it. The tension in her breathing, the way she shifted in bed. She was waiting for me to show my hand. But I didn't, because I had already learned the most important rule in this game: the one who reacts first loses. But here's the truth no one talks about. Playing calm doesn't mean you feel calm. Inside, I was breaking. Every second, every thought, every memory we ever had was being rewritten. The laughter felt fake. The love felt staged. Even the way she said my name started to sound like manipulation. And the worst part, I couldn't trust my own mind anymore. Because what if she was right? What if I was too sensitive? What if I was imagining things? That's how deep it went. That's how far she had pushed me. The third move I made was the one that changed everything. I followed her, not dramatically, not obviously, carefully, patiently. And what I saw confirmed everything. She wasn't meeting one person. She was meeting multiple: lawyers, financial advisors, and him, the man from the messages. I saw them together, laughing, relaxed, close, like I didn't exist, like I had already been erased. And in that moment, something inside me went cold, not angry, not emotional, just empty. Because it wasn't just betrayal anymore, it was replacement. If you've ever been replaced, you know that feeling. It's not pain, it's absence, like you've already been removed from your own life and no one told you. That night, I sat in my car for over an hour, not moving, not thinking, just sitting there. And that's when the idea came to me. Not suddenly, not dramatically, slowly, like it had been waiting, like it had always been there. What if I didn't stop her? What if I let her finish? What if I gave her exactly what she wanted, but on my terms? 3 days later, everything was ready, and she had no idea, or at least that's what I believed. The night it happened, she was calm, too calm. We had dinner, normal conversation, normal smiles, normal silence. And then she stood up, walked toward the stairs, and paused, just for a second. Then she turned back and looked at me, not with love, not with anger, but with something I didn't understand at the time: expectation. Like she was waiting for something. Something from me, a reaction, a move, a mistake, but I gave her nothing. I just looked back at her and smiled. That was the last moment I saw her alive, or at least that's what everyone believes. The fall was ruled an accident. Clean, simple, tragic. She slipped, hit her head. Gone just like that. No questions, no suspicion, no investigation, because people like Evelyn, they don't have enemies, they have admirers, and I played my role perfectly. The grieving husband, the broken man, the one who lost everything. And the truth, I should have felt something: guilt, relief, fear, something, but I didn't. I just felt free. If you're thinking this is where he wins, you're wrong, because this wasn't the end of the game. This was the moment the game actually began. The funeral was scheduled for 3 days later, and those 3 days, they were the calmest days I had experienced in years. No tension, no silence, no watching eyes, just peace. Or at least what I thought was peace. Because looking back now, those were the most dangerous 3 days of my life. Something was wrong, I just couldn't see it yet. And the first sign came the night before the funeral, when I found something that should not have existed. If you've made it this far, don't stop now. Subscribe, because that's where everything flips. And comment your name and city. I want to know who's still here, still paying attention. Because the next part, that's where I realized I was never the one in control, not even for a second. Perfect. Now this is where we flip the psychology and hook the viewer even harder. Part 3 must destroy certainty and plant the twist seeds clearly. Part 3, The trap reveals itself, real tensions spike. The first real crack in my freedom didn't come from the police. It didn't come from suspicion. It came from something much smaller, something that should not have existed. A voicemail. It was the night before the funeral. The house was quiet, too quiet. Not peaceful, just empty in a way that made every sound feel louder than it should be. I was sitting in the living room, staring at nothing, replaying everything in my head, her voice, her smile, the way she said, "You're too sensitive." That sentence wouldn't leave me. It kept echoing, like it meant something more than I understood. That's when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. Almost. But something in my chest tightened, so I answered. Silence. No breathing. No background noise, just nothing. "Hello," I said, still nothing. Then the call ended. I frowned, stared at the screen, and for a second I told myself it was nothing. Spam, wrong number, meaningless. But then the notification came in. Voicemail. And I swear to you, I don't know why I felt fear in that moment, but I did. A slow, creeping kind of fear that starts in your chest and spreads outward. I opened it, pressed play. And for the first few seconds, there was nothing, just static. Then a sound, a breath, faint, weak, but real, and then I heard it, her voice. "Daniel," I froze, every muscle in my body locked, because that wasn't possible. She was dead. I saw her body. I identified her. I signed the papers. She was dead. "Daniel, if you're hearing this," her voice cracked. "Then it means you did exactly what I thought you would." My hand started shaking. "No, no, that's not," I whispered. But she kept going. Calm, measured, controlled, just like always. "I needed to know who you really were." My heart started pounding. Loud, violent, uncontrollable. "And now I do." The voicemail ended, just like that. No explanation, no panic, no confusion, just certainty. Like she had already seen everything that was going to happen. And I sat there in that silent house, realizing something I should have understood much earlier. This wasn't over. It had never been over. If you're still watching, I need you to think carefully about this moment. Because this right here, this is where most people make a mistake. They panic, they react, they lose control. So what would you do? Would you go to the police? Would you run? Or would you convince yourself it wasn't real? Comment your answer and don't forget to drop your name and city. I want to know who's really following this story closely, because what I did next changed everything. I told myself it wasn't real. I had to, because the alternative didn't make sense. There was no way she could have recorded that after everything. So I rationalized it. Old message, coincidence, timing, anything that made it less real. Because if it was real, then that meant one thing, she knew before it even happened. I didn't sleep that night, not even for a second. Every noise in the house felt different. Every shadow looked wrong. And for the first time since all of this started, I felt something I hadn't felt before. Not anger, not fear, something worse. Doubt. About myself, about what I had done, about what I thought I understood. The next morning, I almost canceled the funeral. Almost. But then I remembered something she said in the voicemail. "If you're hearing this, it means you did exactly what I thought you would." That line, it wasn't random. It was specific, targeted, designed. And that's when I realized the funeral wasn't just a funeral. It was part of something she had planned. And if I didn't go, if I stepped out of line, then whatever this was, I would lose my only chance to understand it, so I went. The chapel was full, packed, more people than I expected. Friends, colleagues, People I didn't even recognize, all of them there for her, all of them believing the same thing, that she was gone. And I stood there in a black suit, shaking hands, accepting condolences, playing the role I had perfected over the last 3 days. The grieving husband, the broken man, and the strangest part, no one questioned me. Not a single person. Because to them, this was simple. A tragic accident, a perfect woman gone too soon, end of story. But I couldn't stop thinking about the voicemail. It kept replaying in my head over and over. If you're hearing this, that meant she expected it, planned it, calculated it, which meant this wasn't an accident, and if it wasn't an accident, then what was it? The coffin sat at the front of the room, closed, still, silent, and I couldn't take my eyes off it. Because something about it felt wrong. Not visually, not physically, but instinctively, like there was something inside it that didn't belong. Then I noticed something else. People watching me, not casually, not subtly, directly. 2 men near the back, a woman near the side aisle. None of them crying, none of them emotional, just observing. And that's when the fear came back, stronger this time, because I understood something I couldn't ignore anymore. I wasn't just attending a funeral. I was being watched. The priest started speaking, words about life, about loss, about memory, but I didn't hear any of it because my focus was locked on that coffin. And the closer the service got to the final prayer, the stronger that feeling became. Something was about to happen. I didn't know what, I didn't know how, but I knew this wasn't going to end normally. Then it happened, a sound, soft, barely noticeable, but I heard it, a faint tap from inside the coffin. My breath caught. I looked around quickly. No one reacted. Maybe I imagined it. Maybe my mind was breaking under pressure. Then it came again. Slightly louder this time, tap, and that's when I knew this wasn't in my head. I stood there frozen, every instinct telling me to move, to stop this, to do something, but I couldn't because if I reacted, I would expose myself. And something deep inside me whispered, "Wait." The room went silent. The priest paused, confused, because now everyone heard it. A louder sound this time. A crack, like pressure building against something that was never meant to open. And then the lid shifted, just slightly, but enough for the entire room to feel it, to see it, to understand it. Gasps filled the air. Someone screamed. The priest stepped back, and I couldn't move. Because in that moment, everything became clear. Not fully, not completely, but enough. Enough to understand the truth I had been avoiding since last night. This wasn't happening to me. This was happening because of me. The lid cracked open, slow, deliberate, controlled, and then her hand appeared, pale, shaking, but alive. The room erupted into chaos, people backing away, voices shouting, panic spreading like fire, but I didn't hear any of it because I was locked on one thing, her. She sat up slowly, breathing hard, eyes scanning the room until they found me, and when they did, she didn't look confused, she didn't look scared, she looked certain. And in that moment, everything inside me collapsed because I finally understood. I hadn't outplayed her. I hadn't escaped. I hadn't won. I had done exactly what she wanted, exactly what she planned, exactly what she needed. And then I saw them, the people who weren't reacting. The ones who had been watching me, they moved, fast, direct, purposeful, toward me. That's when the panic hit, real panic, not fear, not doubt, truth. And as they got closer, I heard her voice again, not from a phone this time. Not from a recording, real, clear, final. I told you, Daniel. A small, weak smile formed on her lips. You're predictable. Good, this is the payoff build where everything starts collapsing and the audience gets emotional plus shocked. We slow it slightly, stretch the humiliation, and expose the trap piece by piece. Part 4, exposure, humiliation, reversal. The first thing I felt wasn't fear. It was heat. A sudden, suffocating wave that rushed through my body the moment those men started walking toward me. Not fast, not aggressive. Calm, controlled, certain, and that scared me more than anything. Because people who rush can be stopped. People who move like that, they already know the ending. I took a step back, just one, small, instinctive, but it was enough. Enough for them to see it, enough for everyone to see it. And just like that, the room shifted. The same people who had been offering me condolences minutes ago were now looking at me differently. Not with sympathy, not with sadness, but with something far heavier: suspicion. Daniel Carter. The voice came from behind me, firm, clear, official. I didn't need to turn around to know what it was, but I did anyway. Two uniformed officers, standing still, watching me the same way everyone else now was, like I had just become the center of something ugly, something undeniable. I'm going to need you to come with us. Simple words, calm tone, but they hit harder than anything Evelyn had ever said to me, because in that moment, everything became real. Not the emotions, not the thoughts, the consequences. I don't understand, I said, and for a second, just a second, I almost believed myself, because confusion is a powerful shield. It lets you hide from truth even when it's standing right in front of you. But then I looked at her. Evelyn. Sitting upright in that coffin, alive, breathing, watching me, and the way she looked at me, there was no anger in it, no pain, no revenge, just completion, like she had finished something, and I was just the result. If you're still watching, I want you to pause for a second and really think about this moment, because this is where most people lie to themselves. This is where they say, I would explain everything. I would prove my innocence. I would fight. But the truth, when the moment actually comes, you don't think clearly, you don't act strong, you break. So tell me, what would you do right here? Comment your answer and don't forget your name and city. I want to see who's still standing with me in this story, because what happened next I didn't see coming. I didn't do anything, I said again, louder this time, more certain, because if you say something enough times, it starts to feel real. One of the officers stepped closer, not aggressive, not threatening, just close enough. We have reason to believe your wife's fall was not an accident. My chest tightened. But she's alive, I said, pointing toward Evelyn. My voice cracked, and I hated that, because that was the first real sign of weakness, and Evelyn noticed it. Of course she did. She noticed everything. Yes, the officer replied calmly. She is. Silence, heavy, thick, unavoidable. And that's exactly why we're here. That sentence, it didn't make sense at first, but then it did. Slowly, painfully, completely. Because if she was alive, then the accident wasn't real. And if the accident wasn't real, then everything that followed was something else. Something planned, something designed. You set me up, I whispered. Not to the officers, not to the room, to her. Evelyn tilted her head slightly, that same soft expression on her face, but her eyes cold, sharp, precise. I didn't set you up, Daniel, she said quietly. Her voice was weak but steady. I just gave you the opportunity to show who you really are. That hit harder than anything else because it wasn't an accusation, it was a conclusion. I found the messages, I snapped. They were real, the plans, the meetings, everything. A small smile touched her lips, not proud, not mocking, just knowing. Yes, she said, they were real. I felt a brief moment of relief, like finally something made sense, but it didn't last. Real enough, she continued. My stomach dropped. What does that mean? I asked. And for the first time since this all began, I heard something different in my own voice. Fear, not of being caught, but of understanding. It means, she said slowly, that every message you saw was meant for you to see. The room felt like it tilted, just slightly, but enough. No, I shook my head. That doesn't make sense. It does, she said calmly. You just didn't want it to. And suddenly, everything started replaying in my head. The phone lighting up, the messages appearing, the laptop left open, the meetings I accidentally discovered. Every single moment I thought I was uncovering something was actually being shown something. You needed me to believe it, I said quietly. Yes. You needed me to react. Yes. You needed me to become exactly what you became, she finished. Silence. No one spoke. No one moved, because this wasn't just a conversation anymore. It was a revelation. I didn't touch you, she continued. I didn't hurt you. I didn't force you to do anything. Her eyes locked onto mine. You made every choice on your own. That was the moment the weight hit, not the accusation, not the situation, the truth, because she was right. Every step I took, I chose, every decision I made. But you pushed me, I said. We influence people every day, Daniel, she replied softly, but we don't control them. That sentence, it destroyed me. Because it removed the last thing I had left, excuse. The officers stepped closer again. This time I didn't step back because there was nowhere left to go. You are under arrest for attempted murder, one of them said. The words echoed. Loud, final, permanent. Gasps filled the room again, people whispering, stepping away, looking at me like I was something they didn't recognize, and maybe I wasn't. As they put the handcuffs on me, cold metal snapping around my wrists. I looked at her one last time. Why? I asked, not angry, not loud, just empty. And for the first time, she hesitated just slightly, but I saw it because I had learned to see everything now. You could have walked away, she said quietly. You could have chosen differently. Her voice softened just a little, but you didn't. And that was it, no long speech, no dramatic explanation, just truth, simple, sharp, unavoidable. As they led me away, the last thing I heard was her voice. Faint, tired, but clear. I just needed to know, a pause, who I married. And just like that, it was over, or at least that's what I thought. Because the real ending, it didn't happen in that room. It didn't happen at the funeral. It happened later, in a place where there are no performances, no masks, no lies, just truth. Perfect, now this is the final payoff where we deliver. Emotional collapse, full circle, meaning moral lesson, audience reflection, strong CTA, plus next video hook, we slow it down, make it heavy, unforgettable. Part 5, final emotional payoff, lesson, last twist. The cell was quieter than I expected. Not peaceful, not calm, just empty. The kind of empty that forces you to hear your own thoughts whether you want to or not. And mine, they wouldn't stop. Not the arrest, not the funeral. Not even the moment she sat up in that coffin. No, What haunted me was everything before that, every choice, every second, every moment I could have walked away but didn't. People think the worst part of losing everything is the loss. It's not. It's the understanding. The slow, suffocating realization that you weren't trapped, you were participating. The first night in that cell, I didn't sleep. I sat on the edge of that narrow bed, staring at the wall, replaying her voice over and over again. "You're predictable." At first, I hated that sentence. It felt like an insult, like she was reducing me to something small, something weak. But now I understood. It wasn't an insult, it was an observation. And the worst part, she wasn't the only one who could see it. I just refused to. If you've made it this far, I want you to pause for a second. Not for the story, for yourself. Because this isn't about me anymore. This is about you. Think about a moment in your life where you reacted instead of thinking, where emotion took control, where pride made the decision. Would you change it if you could, or would you still justify it? Comment below. Tell me your name and city. I read every single one because stories like this aren't just watched, they're felt. Days passed, then weeks. The investigation moved fast, faster than I expected. Because they didn't need to search for evidence, they already had it. That was the part I didn't understand at first, but I do now. They weren't building a case. They were waiting for me to complete it. Every move I made, every step I took after seeing those messages, it was all documented. The changes in behavior, the tracking, the planning, even the night she fell. There were cameras, angles I didn't see, details I didn't notice. Because I wasn't thinking clearly, I was reacting. Exactly like she predicted. I asked to see her once, just once, I don't know why, closure maybe, answers, or maybe I just wanted to see if there was still something human left between us. They allowed it. One meeting. Supervised, 10 minutes, that's all. She looked different, not physically. She was still Evelyn, still composed, still controlled, but there was something missing. That perfection everyone admired, it was gone, and for the first time she looked real. We sat across from each other, a glass wall between us. Of course, there was always something between us, even when I didn't realize it. I picked up the phone. She did the same. Silence, long, heavy, until I finally spoke. "Did you ever love me?" The question felt small the moment it left my mouth. But it was the only one that mattered. She didn't answer right away. She looked at me, really looked at me, like she was seeing me clearly for the first time, or maybe like she always had. "Yes," she said finally, and something inside me broke again because I believed her, not completely, not blindly, but enough to hurt. "Then why?" I asked. My voice was quieter now, not angry, not demanding, just tired. She exhaled slowly, and for the first time she didn't look in control. "I needed to feel safe," she said. I frowned. "Safe from what?" She held my gaze. "From the part of you that you refuse to see." I almost laughed, not because it was funny. Because it sounded absurd. "I never hurt you," I said. "No," she replied softly. "You didn't." A pause, "But you could have." That sentence, it stayed with me longer than anything else she said, because it forced me to confront something I had avoided my entire life. Not what I had done, but what I was capable of. "I needed certainty," she continued. "I needed to know if, when pushed far enough, you would break or become dangerous." I swallowed hard. "And now you know." "Yes." Silence again. And this time it felt final. "You destroyed me," I said. not accusing, just stating. She shook her head slightly. No, Daniel. Her voice was calm again, steady, clear. You destroyed yourself. That was the last thing she ever said to me. The trial didn't take long, cases like mine rarely do, because there was no mystery, no confusion, just a series of choices that led to one inevitable conclusion: attempted murder, intent, premeditation, all the words I used to hear in stories, now attached to me. When the verdict was read, I didn't react, not because I was strong, but because I was empty, completely. Time moves differently after that. Days blur, faces fade, but thoughts, they stay sharp, clear, unforgiving. And that's why I'm telling you this. Not for sympathy, not for justification, but for something far more important: awareness. Because the truth is, most people think they know who they are until they're tested, until they're pushed, until they're placed in a situation where emotion overrides logic. And in that moment, that's who you really are, not the person you believe yourself to be, the person you choose to be. If there's one thing you take from my story, let it be this: you don't become dangerous in one moment. You become dangerous in small decisions, ignored feelings, uncontrolled thoughts, unchallenged reactions, until one day there's no turning back. If this story made you think, if it made you question something inside yourself, subscribe to the channel, because this isn't just storytelling, this is reflection, and I promise you the next story, it will hit even harder. Before you go, comment your name and city. I want to know who stayed until the end, who listened, who understood. Because somewhere out there, someone is standing at the beginning of a decision that could change everything. And they don't even know it yet.